Today, I'm bringing you a three-part series on child safety. And my next conversation is going to be with Chris Beck of Soberlink. And I want to tell you why I was so excited to have this conversation with him. I've always known alcohol monitoring in the punitive context. Soberlink, what fascinated me about Soberlink was they use the monitoring to assist and prevent. That's why I was so excited to talk to him. Same reason I was excited to talk to Donna. She's about domestic violence prevention. And on the bench, all I could do was clean up the mess after the problem occurred. You've taken your business to a model where it's not just on the punitive side, which is how I often saw it. It's supposed to be, it's assistance, to family, because you're in a family law circumstance where a substance abuse may be an issue, so you can have real-time, meaningful results that aren't this, there's a lot of back and forth, he said, she said, and it takes all that out, which I think is tremendous.
You hit the nail on the head right there, is that very often when we got into this business and we were looking at how our technology could help, it really looked like, we were struggling. The individuals who have the disease of alcohol use disorder needed something where they could empower themselves to help, earn trust back in those relationships that they kind of lost, right?
Right.
So our technology is able to document that sobriety, and during that documentation process and getting the results in real time, that trust is being earned back. And you're starting to find out that, as you get more and more compliant behavior, we're seeing successful programs. What happens is you get more and more parenting time. So you kind of see it as a parenting equity, maybe.
Right. And not only that, though, that's one side of it, but the other side of your business where you're doing a daily regimented one where people who do have a substance abuse problem are trying to fix it. All of us adults have some measure of brokenness to us. And just because it's an addiction or mental health, neither one of those things are chosen. They are both a disease or an illness that you're dealing with, and it allows you to cope with what you have to allow your children to have a better parent.
You're absolutely right. The stereotypes of alcoholism being a moral failing needs to end. And that's what we're all about. We want to make sure we spread that news that, is not a moral failing. It's something that someone's going to struggle with.
Right.
But there is ways to make sure that you can earn back that trust. You can be part of this recovery circle that gives information to everyone around you and get through this.
Yeah. And that's very important, because I talk about this in the mental health side, but also on this side is if you get away from the shame of it, and it enables you to raise your hand to say, I suffer with it, and therefore gives you an opportunity to do something about it. But if you leave the shame piece in place, you don't have the opportunity to get people to raise their hands and gravitate towards what you're offering.
Absolutely right.
Now, when you talk about dealing with children, and do courts often ask you to come in and when you have a high conflict parenting situation, or do the parents themselves ask, or is it a variety of means by which they get to you?
Yeah, so I've seen it in all different manners. I mean, we've been asked to come into the courtroom and explain our system to both parties. We've been asked to be involved in a conference call of a mediation that is going on to explain our technology and what our product does, especially when it comes to best practices. What are some of the things that we need to be careful of? I always get hit with the question that probably comes up number one in the internet search results is, what should I be concerned about with breathalyzer technologies? And the first thing that comes up is like false positives, right? And so we actually have a retest cycle that is just like any type of lab test that you go in and to get let's say a PEth test or an ETG test, and you test positive, that lab will then retest that same sample to confirm it. We do the same thing. Our system actually has a retest cycle where if you do blow positive, the system will lock out, allow you to rinse your mouth, make sure that there's no contaminants in the mouth cavity, and then you'll be able to retake the test to confirm if it was a positive. But then if you blow compliant, we know that there was some type of contaminant that got into your mouth and then had dissipated. So it would be a compliant test at that time. So
Well, I would hear that in court all the time. Where I had just
yeah,
mouthwash was the
yeah,
thing that they would say, I just washed out the Listerine or something, and this and that or other.
yeah.
Does your product pick up stuff like that? That's non-alcohol. Well, I guess it does. It has some alcohol in it. So
It does. So that's what happens. We use fuel cell technology. It's been around for over 50 years. And it's a chemical reaction that happens when there's alcohol in your breath that goes into the fuel cell. It will register at some type of intensity. And that intensity is measured and turned into a BAC percentage. So like 0.08 that you're familiar with, right? As a BAC.
Right.
So the more alcohol, the higher the BAC percentage.
Right.
So yes, if you have Listerine in the house, which should not be in your house if you are on a device such as Soberlink, you should eliminate all alcohol products from your house. That's part of the testing protocol, right?
Right.
This is about your kiddos. This is about trying to find, trying to submit a test to document your sobriety, to get more valuable time to parent your kids. And so if that means eliminating Listerine and substituting it with Scope that's non-alcoholic, it's a pretty easy substitution. So when people come to me and say, well, I just brushed my teeth, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's a tough one, especially with our test cycle, because all the data suggests that if you have a contaminant in your mouth cavity, such as Listerine, in 5 minutes, it will dissipate. So if we lock out for 15 minutes, there's no reason that alcohol from Listerine should still be in your mouth cavity and causing a positive test.
One of the things I truly appreciated about Chris Beck's conversation is that he shares my view that we ought not weaponize the concerns that people have, either alcoholism, mental illness, whatever it is. Often, especially in divorce cases, they're weaponized and used against the party who is dealing with them. What we're trying to do is recognize alcohol as the disease it is and treat it as the disease it is. So Chris Beck gave me an opportunity to see how the things that I used to use to punish people can be used to help folk. Outstanding idea.